Hello everyone, welcome to our CSS Crash Course episode 2. So with this episode, we are going to talk about text formatting. As we started with the episode 1, we spoke a little bit but not in depth. So this we are going to go in depth. We are talking about text formatting, font properties, web fonts, advanced typography in CSS, text line settings, and text effects. We're also going to talk about selectors, and we are going to end it with CSS list styles. Okay, so just stay tuned and follow. Let's get to it. Don't forget also to code along with me, because you don't get good by watching me code. You have to just the code yourself. So now that you've gotten your feet wet with CSS, by the end of this episode 2, you're going to get additional CSS properties, okay, that you use to manipulate the appearance of your text. And as well, you are going to learn how to use more powerful selectors to target elements in particular context. So with specific selectors like ID and class names. When you design a text document, right, for print or for web, basically one of the first things you do is you specify a font. So with CSS, we have specified font related properties, which we use for typeface. Okay, so we have the font size, we have the font weight, we have the font style, we have the font special characters, and there are also shortcut properties that let you specify multiple font attributes in a single row. So let me give you one example here. Let's keep it simple, go straight to the point. And the font properties, okay, let's use our element selector, and the font properties, we have the font size. So we can see a lot here: font size, font family, font weight, font style, font display, font variant, and many more. So these are font properties with CSS. So we are going to begin with the font family. Okay, so we are going to specify a font family, and the font family we are specifying is Courier. Okay, and we put it in a quote because CSS needs to know that it is the same. All right, the space here, if you take the quote out, CSS will not read your code. Okay, it is flawed. You see, it is flawed. Okay, anytime you are specifying font or something which has to be spaced but it's one word, you have to put it in quote, either double quote or one. It's fine. Let's go ahead and specify another font. Okay, so this time we're going to use the paragraph, and today we're going to try lorem. Okay, lorem 20. If you don't know lorem 20, that means you'll be missing class a lot. So as usual, go back to HTML course. Okay, you'll be missing class. And let's go ahead and specify another font family for this. So P, all right. And with this font family, you can see we are using two separate fonts. Okay, and with specifying fonts, you always have to start with capital. Okay, you cannot write A. It doesn't work. You see, CSS is crying, it's flawed. Okay, so what you need to do is use your capital A, and if it is Helvetica, capital H. That's how we do it, and you separate it by comma. So this is a fallback font in case our browser is not able to render this area. It will render Helvetica for us, and you can also add another font. Okay, so let me give you a tip how this works, right? You know, normally your device has fonts installed on it, so CSS will ask, does your device have Arial? If yes, it renders Arial. If no, it will go to Helvetica. If it doesn't work, it is going to try another font. So by default, you already have fonts on your devices. So if I'm rendering or deploying this website, anyone with Arial and Helvetica can see my content. Okay, and we also have another way of specifying font, which is the web fonts. So we can also add Google fonts. Okay, so what we are going to do is add Google fonts right now, and you have to search for the website. Okay, and the website is fonts.google. Yeah, so when you go to Google Fonts, let's say there is a font you want to use, right? So when you go to get fonts, you can either download the font. When you download it, you are going to host it. You can download and put it in your assets folder, create a new folder in your file directory, keep it there, or you can get embedded code. So when you click on get embedded code, that means you have to copy this link. Okay, you have to copy this link and take it to Google. I said Google, I mean your code, and paste it here. So where you're going to paste it is your head section. So where you're going to embed is you're going to embed it in your head section. Okay, so you copy the code from Google and embed it in your head section. And as I said, the head section is very important because it does not contain the things that will be showing on your web page, but what is there really affects your websites. Okay, what you put in your head section also can affect your website. Okay, so you just bring the code here from Google, and when you bring the code, you paste it in your head section in your HTML document. When you're done, you call the font. Okay, you use it in your CSS. So this is a universal selector, which is called the body. So I'm saying any text, okay, any text that I'm going to use in my body section here should have this font. That is what I mean by body, and it's going to inherit any other text that I'm going to put in my HTML or my web page. So here's another tip for you. Aside Google Fonts, right, you can search for Font Spring. So when you come to Font Spring, you're going to find open source fonts. That is good for your web. So all the fonts here are commercial fonts that you can use to build your web pages. So the website is fontspring.com, and there is another one. Let me show you the one, which is Font Squirrel. Yeah, so this is another free open source font website that can download your fonts and embed it in your HTML or your root file. Okay, so in order to use it, let's say we want this cushion script. What you have to do is to click on the download button here, download OTF format. Okay, and so after you download it, we are going to our root folder. We are going to create a new file called fonts. Right, and we are going to open the font and paste our new font here. We are going to extract it. So we are going to, after we've extracted it, you can delete your zip file. And let me just copy the name. And let's go back to our HTML page. So you can see this is our font here. Okay, this is our font here. And this is the folder that we created, fonts. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and use it in our CSS. So in order to use the font that we downloaded, we need to use a rule here, which is at font face. Okay, that is the rule, and we are going to use that to specify our font. So let's select the font family property and our font. Okay, this is our font, and after that we have to connect the source. And with doing that, first of all, let's go back and you use your source attributes and URL, and you use your quotes. Okay, and what I like to use is dot slash. Dot slash means we are going to our CSS folder, and within the CSS folder we are going to look for what? Fonts folder. And within the font folder we are going to look for push and script. So with this, we've called the font. So after we call it, then we use it. Right, then we use it, and as you can see, it has been applied to our body. Okay, so this is another way of using fonts. Okay, so let's say if you want different font weight, bold, you want italic, you want thin, you have to make sure the font that you downloaded has all these properties that you can call. The font we used is just regular. Okay, so when you need other font weight and other styling properties, you have to make sure you download font that will give you that, and you paste everything in your HTML document or your root folder. You paste everything there and you call them. All right, the next font property we are going to talk about is the font size, which we've already discussed a lot in the episode 1. So what's new that I want to tell you, or wanted to discuss, is the percentage. That is the best practice if you want to specify font sizes. We use most often we use the RAM, okay, the EM, and the percentage. So the percentage goes this way. Let me say I'm giving 200%. Right, 200% is going to multiply our default, which is 16 pixels, by 2. So this 200% is the same as 2 REMs. Okay, and you can see nothing changes. I'm going to go ahead and clean everything. So let's talk about font weight, and let's start our body element again, and let's use a different font family. Now we are going to use Times New Roman, because I think Times Roman have different font weights. So let's call a font weight property, and you can see there are numerous from 100 to 900, very bold. We have bold, border, light. So let's try the 900, and you can see there's difference. You can as well reduce it to 400, which is usually the regular. Okay, so this is font weight in CSS, and we have font style, and with the font style we have italic, we have normal, we have oblique. So we can use the italic and everything will go to italic. So instead of specifying each one after the other, let's say you have to specify the font size. When you're done, you have to specify the font family. When you're done, you have to specify font weight, right, and so on and so forth. There's something you can do which is going to help you, and that is the font shortcut. So what you have to do is just use font, just that. Okay, and you bring your column, and you can bring 100 here, and you continue with the rest. Okay, you can just use spacing between them, and you add another one, you put spacing between them. So at this point, let's move on with our selectors. We talk about the element selectors, we talked about the group selectors. So The next one I'm going to show you is the descendant selectors. So the descendant selectors, what it does is it selects the child elements that are inside the parents folder. So we are going to give a div. Okay, this div we are going to put a p here, and let's say hello, right? And outside the div we are also going to put paragraph here, and let's say hi. What we are going to do is use descendant selector, and what this means is we are entering the div and we are going to pick the paragraph inside the div. We are going to give it a color of red. So as you can see, the hello is red and the hi, which is also a paragraph, did not change. So this is what you mean by descendant selectors. So we have selected the paragraph in the div. So this p here is a descendant of the div. So with the descendant selectors, all you need to is to call your parent and you give a space and you call your child, right? And we have another one which is called child selector. So with the same example, we just have to change the syntax here, and instead of the space we are going to use a greater than, and using a greater than is called child selector. Okay, so same, we are calling the direct child of this div element, and the descendant selector we just use space. Okay, space, and it still works the same. And we already spoken about the ID selectors, but let's refresh. Okay, so with the ID selector you have to use your ID is equal to, and you open your quotes, you put the name of the selector or the ID name there, and you are going to call it, okay, with an hashtag and select, and you give it your property and your value. All right, so you can see it has changed here and the hi has changed color. All right, let me just add more context so that you can see it well. Yeah, so now you can see everything bold and clear. So this is the ID selector, and we have a class selector, CSS class selector, which is very common. So let's bring another paragraph here. All right, and let's give it a class. Okay, so this is a class selector. Okay, and let's call the class here. What we use to call a class is full stop. Okay, and you call the class name, which is lorem, and give it your property and your value. So these are all ways to select HTML elements and give them specific stylings. In CSS, you can give any kind of styling that you want. Okay, you can give it any kind of styling that you want. And as we go on with the crash course, we're going to do more crazy stylings and in-depth stylings using CSS. So this is just episode 2. Kindly like and subscribe. Don't forget, this is free content. So before we move on with the selectors, let me show you another wildcard in these programming languages, and this is called universal selector. The asterisk, what is called, is the universal selector. So it picks every other element. So let's give it a border, right? One pixels solid. Yeah, 1 pixel solid. And you can see it's going to start everything, including the divs around the elements, okay, including the divs. So that is universal selector. It's a wildcard that if you want to implement something, the name speaks for itself, universal. So with selectors, we are doing selectors 101. All right. So the individual selected elements like the P, when I say P, I mean when I'm calling P element selectors or H1. Okay, so this is what I mean by individual element selectors. The class selector will override what you use the element selectors to, same as the ID selector will override what you use the class selector to style. All right, but that is not all. That is not it. So let me show you an example. Let's use the ID. Let's style this ID. Right, let's style it red, and let's go inside the ID itself and let's give it an inline styling. Right, and let's change the color again. Right, so you can see the inline style is also more powerful than the ID selector. So that is how it works. Right, the normal element selector first, right, then the class selector will override it, then the ID selector will override the class selector, then the style inline selector will also override the ID. So this is actually a style attribute, and it's used to give inline CSS or inline styling to your HTML elements. So I think for now we are done with the selectors 101. Okay, so the next property we are talking about is the text line adjustment. Okay, so it's really important for headings, paragraphs, and readability. So when we are formatting it, the property we are using, let me clean this. The property we are using is line height. If you are coming from a design background, you already know what line height is. All right, so let me say we are using 2px, and you can see it doesn't really work well. See what the 2px does. So let's increase it a little. Let's give it 4. It's also bad. You can increase it to 10. So instead of hard coding them, you can simply use the RAMs, to just multiply them. Okay, so if you want a bigger one, let's go. Do you understand? That is why I say the RAMs are more best practices than hard coding pixels. Okay, so if you are used to using pixels, today is the day you stop using pixels. Okay, great. So this is line height, and we have line indent. So the property name is text indent, and also the same thing. You can see it's giving the space here. Okay, it's giving the space here, like we are giving a paragraph. Right, so as you can see, this is the text indent property, and this is the line height property. They are all very useful in designing your web pages. And what we are going to talk about next is the alignments. Okay, we have text alignments. So with the text align, which most of you might or will already be familiar with because of designing, we have text aligning left, right, center, justify. Even when you're writing your PowerPoint and all that, Microsoft It's just basic knowledge at this point. So text alignment is also very useful when you're designing your web pages, body sections, hero image, hero headlines, and all that. You use text alignment in it. And we also have underlines and decorations. Okay, so the property we use is for text decoration, and text decoration you can use overline, and let's give another one here, text decoration. Okay, text decoration dash underline, so it's giving dash and underline at the same time, so you can use just underlining as your text decoration. You can use line through. Okay, line through is also another text decoration. And you can also use CSS to change capitalizations. So let's say we want to change this thing to all caps. We don't need to rewrite everything in caps. All we have to do is to use the text transform property. Okay, text transform property, uppercase, and everything automatically goes to uppercase. Yeah, easy as ABCD. And one more powerful property is also spacing. Okay, letter spacing. It's very important to master letter spacing if you are designing. So with letter spacing, I think the pixel property will do justice to the letter spacing. Okay, so pixel property will do much justice to letter spacing. Okay, so if you want to squeeze it a little bit, you reduce the properties. If you want to increase the spacing, straightforward, you just add more to it. And we have text shadow. Okay, straightforward. This is not a drop shadow, this is straightforward text shadow, and the property is what, as the name says, text shadow. So it's not really best practice, or it's not really advisable, because I think websites have moved away from text shadows. You don't need text shadows for your website to be visible. All right, this is not image, but yeah, it's good that you know that there is something called text shadow. Right, you can literally change the colors. Right, you can change the colors as well. So before we close chapters on text formatting, I want to leave you with one more tip. Okay, yeah, because I love you guys. We are going to go with listing, and what we are going to do is list style types. Okay, so what we did here is an UL on ordered list, and we are listing item 1, item 2, item 3. Right, so on ordered list means it's going to give you no numbering. So and we have OL, which is ordered list. This is just a bonus. So the OL is going to give you numbers. As you can see, it's giving you number 1, 2, 3 here. I mean this one here. So let's style the UL first. Okay, and you can change the list style type to square. All right, so then we can also change it to circles. All right, and for the ordered list, with the list style types, we can change it to Roman numerals and Latin alphabet and all that with this list style type property. And you can also use an image. Okay, we can also use an image to style your list. And let's see if you can find an image on Google to use. Are you kidding me? Who is this guy? Yeah, of course. What matters is that it works. Okay, so I pasted the image URL, and the image is used to style our items. Okay, I mean, so I'm going to go ahead and find another image. Yeah, and as you can see, it works here. So you can also use an image. That is the most important thing to style your lists. So this brings us to the end of this episode 2. And the next episode, we're going to talk about something more powerful, like the procedural class, and we're going to talk about background images in CSS, and a lot more. By the way, if you've watched to this section, to this end of the video, comment the name of this guy. I don't know him, and if you know him, just leave a comment who he is. I think he's a legend, because I'm looking for a dev image, and this is what I find, so kindly like and subscribe as well. And the next episode, don't miss out.